So, how would I describe me, myself personally, or what I'm kind of trying to teach?
Both? Yeah. Who
Cool.
you are and what you do, really.
Yeah, so who I am. Okay, so uh, my name's Ben. I grew up in upstate New York. I have been fascinated by Eastern philosophy as long as I can remember, to be honest. Even when I was a kid, I remember just being really intrigued with like even just Tibetan iconography, like statues, kind of just Eastern culture. So that's kind of trippy and weird. But then I just went like head first into studying. First, it was kind of like Vedic yoga, and then it went much more deep into Buddhism and exploring all flavors, all different schools of Buddhism. And then sort of finding one teacher in particular who I'm sure I'll talk about who really made this teaching of emptiness really obvious, transparent, approachable, pragmatic. And emptiness is sort of the crux of the Buddhist path, in my opinion. So, emptiness of phenomena, the emptiness of self, the emptiness of world, the emptiness of experience as a whole. And it goes incredibly deep to even our experience of materiality, our experience of duality, of subject and object. All is empty of inherent reality. So we'll get more into that for sure because it's a big topic that needs quite a bit of unpacking. But it changed me at every level as this insight has really ripened and matured. Um, it affects how me personally, how I've been able to express myself, who I am at the level of my own narrative perception, what the world is. In seeing the emptiness, we're not locked into any one story, any one narrative. We're free to try on different worldviews and different views of self, sort of like you try on clothes and you try on one
Yeah.
and you see how it fits. You can, and this again applies to worldviews, narratives about the past, narratives about the present moment and the future, all of which are empty, malleable, and um, yeah. So this opens up a lot. So my passion is, I guess, teaching this because it is teachable and it is
Mm.
incredibly transformative. This is what's different about Buddhism at its core is that a lot of world traditions I found, because I've studied them all for the most part, they're very poetic narratives about the ineffable, about that thing we can't quite put our finger on,
Yeah.
spirit, the void, whatever you want to call it. Whereas Buddhism is different in the sense it prescribes certain practices, techniques, so you can see that for yourself. Instead of a poetic narrative that you live into, which are beautiful and necessary, it's more of you getting into the coding of mind, experience, and perception, and to see
Mm.
how did this whole thing come to be? How real is my life? What made it real? Who made it real? Does it exist beyond my own mind? So, um, I just again once I found Buddhism, I just went headfirst into it and was lucky enough to find a certain teacher who really made this sort of enigmatic teaching of emptiness really approachable. And now that's what I want to do because I'm like, it changes everything. There's a quote by
Hmm.
this teacher. His name is Rob Berbea, where he says, emptiness, shunyata, again, the Pali word, is the most important thing a human being can understand. Hands down, fundamentally, it is the most important thing. And just based on my own life in the past 5 years of, again, seeing this mature and ripen, I would completely agree. So it's like a sole purpose at this point, which is just to show
Yeah.
people how things are.
Wonderful. Yeah. So you're saying Buddhism was superior to the other belief systems because it kind of brought it into a relatable form, like it brought it into yourself, something that you could actually do per se,
Yeah.
rather than
So,
just like this out there story and
right.
phenomena.
So I wouldn't say Buddhism is superior. I guess it depends. I don't even want to put them in hierarchies because, you
Yeah.
know, I love all sorts of mystical traditions, Hinduism, Judaism, mystical Christianity. I think they're beautiful. And I draw on them a lot in my life. But the difference between those traditions and Buddhism, I would say, is that Buddhism gets into the coding. That's how I put it, sort of
Uh-huh.
the coding of experience. Less about what is real, because let's put it like this, at a deep level, all of those traditions, world religions, you could say that they construct a world view. So this is a view. But until you recognize that all of these views are projections of mind and they don't have any inherent truth beyond that, um, then you're still, it's easy to be stuck and trapped in sort of a solidified cage of a worldview where you say that this is the way that things are objectively. Any other way is not it. So in
Mm.
Buddhism, that would deny the emptiness of phenomena, that would deny the emptiness of perception. And that's where the freedom is recognizing all of these stories are empty. And I don't have to cling to one and say, this is really real, or cling to another and say, this is really real. And that's where the freedom is. It's in the lack of clinging. And it's interesting, the human mind, I found through meditation and studying specifically Buddhist meditation, the human mind is always looking for some ground to stand on, in the sense it
Mm-hmm.
wants to say, this is how things are. This is how I am. Objectively, with certainty, this is the way that things are. And in Buddhism, they would say that is actually the core delusion, thinking that there is one way that things are beyond emptiness. Recognizing that any, again, perceived experience of me and who I am, what I am, and what the world is, if we perceive that as solid and unchanging, we're actually trapping ourselves in a projection of our own mind. And we're rejecting, we're actually like forgetting that it's a projection of our own mind.
Mm.
So we can recognize this world that we're walking through is inseparable from, again, sort of cognitive overlays. You could say projections, narrative stories that we then project onto things. And when we recognize that, I've heard one teacher say we sort of become the children of illusion, where we can still play in the world, we can still
That's good.
experience it all and sink our teeth in it, but we're not trapped. We see it for what it
Mm.
is, and it is empty projections. So
Oh. And then we can play with the illusion.
exactly. So that's what I really want to teach, and that's where I draw on the teachings of depth psychology. So Carl Jung and specifically James Hillman, who developed this kind of style of psychology called archetypal psychology, where when you see the radicality and the depth and thoroughness and completeness of emptiness, of all of experience, all that we're left with are empty, you could say illusory, also very real, experiences of self, experiences of the world, all of which aren't objectively real. None are more real than anything else. So when you
Mm-hmm.
recognize this, you're free of the chains of objectivity. That's how I put it. Because a lot of the
Mm.
times we're chained to, it's like this or it's like that, and it has to be one or the other, and that's the cage. So when we're free of those chains, we can again try on different self views, like masks in a sense, or like clothes. Again, trying on different clothing, seeing what fits for me right now in this moment, and having the flexibility and the malleability to change that self view to something that is more skillful in the future at a different time. So here, this is what I talk about, sort of its multi-dimensional, um, pragmatic application of emptiness, where I can be both just Ben the human being. So recognizing that Ben the human being is an empty story, but I still function that in that at that level for, like, work, when I'm hanging out with my parents, you know what I mean? Just the normal 3D type shit. But then I can also adopt a view where I am creation itself. I am the creator. I am an extension of source, and everything coming through me, my voice, my movements, this is an expression of the holy of holies, basically. So that's a different empty narrative that that constructs a very different experience of what's going on right now and who I am and who's speaking right now. So,
Mm.
and again, the freedom is not saying it's one or the other. The freedom is being able to access, both of these views. It's saying there's not one that's more real, actually. They're both empty, and simultaneously very real lived experiences. So I hope this makes sense because there's
Yeah,
a lot
man.
in this.
Yeah. We very well spoken.
Thank you. I
Very understood.
appreciate it.
Yeah, man. I can tell you understand this.
It's been my
That's good.
life path I'm just absolutely tenacious and hard headed. And once I set my mind to something, I literally can't stop until I figure it out.
Well, let me ask you this one. Where does it come from for you to um, walk the path? You know, how did you even get started?
Yeah, great question. So for me, I think like many people on the spiritual path, it starts with pain, confusion, some flavor of darkness where
Yep.
the narratives, the worldview that we've been conditioned to live in just feels tight, rigid,
Yeah.
and just
Constricting.
exactly, it's constricting. And especially
Mm.
when you're young and that's the only world you know. You're like, what the fuck do I do? Do I just blow my brains out? Do I like go live in New Zealand or you know what I mean? So for
Yeah.
me, it was like I first found yoga and, linking breath to movement and stretching with the yogic philosophy, which is obviously inspired by, Vedic philosophy, which is very deep and very different than the conditioned Western, you could say, Christian inspired, scientific, materialism based worldview.
Yeah.
So finding just a view that was very different, saying, like you were talking about non-duality before we started recording, something like non-duality, when you first hear of it, you're like, whoa, like that's a breath of fresh air. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Yeah, the first time I ever heard any Dharma or non-dual talk, I'm like, what is this? I never heard people talking like this before.
Exactly. Exactly. So just, I tasted a little bit of that and I was like, I like the flavor of these worldviews, these cultures. Again,
Yeah.
trying them on like clothes. I'm like, this feels a lot more right, a lot more like me. Um, and then, I went through these waves of depression, like pretty crippling depression. It was uh, right as I was finishing undergrad. I was like, I'm getting this degree. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't really want to even get a job in this field that I now have a degree in. Cause you kind of get just like cattle just getting
Yep.
herded into college.
Yep.
And so I was like, I don't even know what the fuck I'm doing, but I have this degree. I don't want to do it. I don't want to. So I hit this like depression and it sent me actually, this is a cool story. I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I just want to travel. So I saved up a bunch of money, only like two G's or something, because I, didn't have that much cash. But I went to Asia and I did a bunch of work exchanges. So first thing, I rode my bike across Vietnam from Saigon to Hanoi, and then out to Cat Ba Island. And I think I was like 22 at the time, so it was kind of fucking insane. And
That's
then,
cool.
so I was still depressed the whole time. So like my friends are hitting me up and like, oh, we've seen your videos. Like, I'm so jealous. Like, it must be so cool to be living out there. And I was like, I'm still depressed and stuck in my head and I can't even enjoy this. And I was like, I got to figure this shit out.
Mm.
So I had a little bit of experience with like a therapist in the States before I left, but it didn't really do much. And there's a deep part of me that craves something much deeper than what normal psychotherapy can offer. And a part of
Uh-huh.
me, even then, knew that that was possible, that a level of freedom that is profound. Again, when you hit the ground of experience, it is freedom, it is love. And uh,
Mm.
again, in hindsight, it's like a part of me knew that and I wouldn't settle for anything less. So after Vietnam, I went to India, and this is as COVID is like just starting to pop off in 2020. So I graduated in December 2019. I go to Asia, spring of 2020. I end up in India in an ashram in Rishikesh, um, like 3 days before they closed down the whole country of India. So
Oh,
serendipitously, I was on lockdown in an ashram, a Shiva ashram called Pulchati, just a little bit north of Rishikesh for
that's
like three or
perfect.
4 months. Yeah, it was
Wow.
kind of crazy in hindsight. But there, I was doing, puja ceremonies, meditation every day, yoga basically every day, eating just Ayurvedic food as like the world is crumbling, metaphorically speaking. Well, I mean, kind of literally also, but
Hmm. Yeah.
And India too, the way I put it, something that I didn't expect therapeutically speaking would be just the shift in, again, worldview. Because I was coming from growing up in the States for 20 something years, and you just have this impression this is how the world is. Everyone thinks like this. These are our values. These are what's important. And you go somewhere like India, and it is drastically different. So, I remember I got off the bus and I see a dead cat, like there's just trash burning, and then there's monks like walking around collecting alms. So it was just like a very
Mm.
interesting, uh, different experience in India. Um, so that was kind of what began the path. And that was, again, more leaning into the Hindu yoga kind of
Hmm.
perspectives and worldviews. And then I got back to the States, and I hadn't had enough of this kind of exploration yet. So I ended up traveling. I worked at a Sikh community in New Mexico and worked on their farm. Then I went to two different Zen centers, one called the Monastic Academy in Vermont, and then one in New Mexico in Jemez Springs. And it was at the Zen centers where I really dove into meditation, and then found this teacher who is I've heard it called the informal head teacher of this place in Vermont called the Monastic Academy. Soryu Foral is the head teacher there, but this guy Rob Berbea, who in my opinion has gone leaps and bounds beyond any other Dharma teacher that I've ever found, as far as his eloquence, his ability to take these very complex topics, which can seem so tricky to understand, like emptiness, for instance, and to make it pragmatic applicable so that you are feeling that freedom, so that it's not just up here, so that it affects the world you walk in. So I
Mm.
found Robert Bea at the Monastic Academy because people were just loved him there. And then I took that with me and have been listening to just thousands of hours of this guy's talks. Because again, I haven't found anyone, and I say that with confidence, I haven't found anyone who really gets as close, just zooms out about the human mind and experience like this guy. And then again, sort of doing what I want to do, which is weaving in archetypes, images, depth psychology, to really get a better, I don't want to say better, a very different perspective of what's going on right now, where it's all empty images and archetypes flowing through us in the world. It's not inherently solid. What we are is more of a theater. I mean, the Hindu perspective would be that divine play, the Leela. Um,
Leela. Yeah.
and and it's beautiful, and it really does change everything, and I cannot stress that enough. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
someone might be like, oh, these ideas are cool. Yes, they are. And once these ideas sink from the mind into the heart and it changes the world you walk through, you are not just unbelievably free. Like, I've been brought to tears recently about the freedom that comes with, a deep, thorough understanding of emptiness. Um, and so it's like, again, like I said, it's like my life mission at this point. It's like, I got this sort of message. And again, it was sort of like intrapsychic. It was like a voice coming through me. Whereas, like you said, I have been given this gift of communication, been given these insights. I got, the serendipitous situations that have led me to this understanding. And it's like something was like, hey, we've given you gifts. It's time for you to give it back. like,
Yeah.
help
Yeah.
others. Look at the world right now. Look at the confusion. And so it's really quite deep for me. It's more than money. It's more than clout. It's like, just, I wrote my senior thesis on this, and I ended it saying, I feel haunted by the beauty of this insight, and I will be haunted by the beauty of emptiness until the day I die, because it's like that. It's like that.
Yeah. It's a good haunting, though. It's a good ghost.
Exactly. It's haunted by beauty. I mean, there's worse things you could be haunted
Haunted
by.
by beauty.
Hmm.
Ooh, that's good, man.
Oh, thank you.
I feel that. Yeah, because it's like, how can you not at least try to give back while we're here? Because it's done so much for you. This insight, this realization has done so much for you. As you said, you were depressed and you didn't know what to do. At that point, I feel like one reaches a certain level, I guess, of understanding where it's like, I kind of have to. I kind of have to spread the good word in some way to the best of my ability. So
Exactly.
yeah, I think that's part of the journey, right? That's part of the spiritual path. Would you say that? It's like at a certain point, you kind of have to serve. You have to give
Yeah.
back what you know or what you learned.
I completely agree. And I mean, what it mirrors is the Bodhisattva ideal, which is,
Exactly.
central in Mahayana Buddhism, which is actually when you see the self as illusory and empty, who is trying to be free? Is this illusory, empty thing? And interestingly, I found in my own life, just applying sort of the path of service and seeing what happens, is when you are really being selfless and of service to others, you're actually acting in a way that loosens the tightness of the illusion of the egoic self. So again, when we act only in service of this guy right here, more social
Mm-hmm.
connections, more money, more diverse experiences, I'm actually reaffirming and strengthening the appearing reality of the ego, which doesn't actually exist. It's illusory,
Yeah.
but we
Yep.
strengthen it when we act only in service of the self. So there's a level of freedom I found that happens once you give back. Once you say, you know what, I think I have enough freedom right now. I think I have enough peace. Let me give my energy, my time, and maybe even my life to something beyond myself. And there's a freedom that comes from that is hard to describe. It's like levity. I feel it's not all about me.
Yeah.
Thank God. Like
Yeah. Right. Weight lifted off of your shoulders.
exactly. And with the ego, I
And it's
found too.
priceless.
Exactly, it's priceless. And my theory, like my curiosity, what would happen if people in the world understood that level of freedom that comes from giving yourself, giving your life to something you care about, helping others? Like there's a freedom that you can't touch no matter how much money you have.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. What would happen to wealth inequality when we understood the radicality of the freedom that comes from really deeply letting go and being of service and opening our self sense? Because what's going on is the self sense is a contraction of the psyche. So the ego, through fear, through senses of separation, through um, insecurity, all of that, all those contractions of mind. When you feel afraid, for instance, you feel a contraction in your chest and your stomach. So it physically happens, but also psychologically, the mind contracts and it makes this illusion of the ego seem very real. So we can expand that sense of self through letting go and actually through love, through opening, through
Yes.
connection to others.
That's
Um,
it.
we find, oh, when I'm not contracted all the time, I am you as much as I am the trees, as much as I am the kids running around. It's all me. And that's a
It's all
double edged
me.
sword because both are
Yes.
you're deathless. You've reached that state of oneness where you really see for yourself what I am is so much bigger than this body, but simultaneously you're also taking on the pain of the whole world, not just the whole
Oof.
world, the
That's it.
whole universe. Everything
Yes.
in existence is you. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people don't want to recognize that because you're taking on a
Mm.
lot of fucking pain. And
Yeah.
that's where the Bodhisattva ideal comes in, where I am of
Yep.
service to this place to relieve the suffering of all beings until they're free. Because that's you. And like,
Until
uh,
I'm free.
exactly. Until I'm free. We, us, I, you know what I mean? All
Same
one
thing.
thing.
Yep.
Uh huh.
Yeah.
So,
That's it, man. Yeah. Well said again. Beautiful stuff. That's really what it comes down to, man. I think in one way or the other, all belief systems are touching upon that truth. It's that it's all one. We've all
mhm,
heard that before. It's
mhm.
all one. But that
Exactly.
really is the truth.
Exactly. And I completely agree with that statement at one level, but I want to almost maybe unpack it a little bit more because people talk about
Yeah.
this oneness, this universal oneness, and this is pretty universal across mystical, religious, spiritual traditions. The difference with Buddhism is that even the oneness can be understood as empty. There actually isn't even a
Mm-hmm.
oneness here. And there's again certain meditations that are prescribed, and it takes years to be able to hit certain what are called perception attainments. Or that's what the Buddha called them. They're called jhanas. I don't know if you're familiar with jhana,
Yeah. Hmm.
samadhi. Yeah, so levels of samadhi. So you descend through 8 jhanas. And again, these are what's called perception attainments simply by calming the mind. Following the breath, for instance, you can basically the mind is slowing down, becoming very calm, and unfabricating. That's the word the Buddha used really often is fabrication. It's a constructed experience, everything. So when we recognize that the mind is fabricating all the time, and we also recognize just through following the breath or developing calm, the mind can stop fabricating as to such a acute level. And what we'll
Yeah.
see that is that all suffering is actually an illusory, fabricated experience where there's nothing solid that it's built on. It's all smoke and mirrors. But not just suffering is illusory and fabricated, but also the experience of a self is fabricated. The experience of even a material body is fabricated. And you see this for your own, like with your own 2 eyes in this samadhi jhana meditation, where again, when the mind is fabricating less, you hit these states of sort of bliss into peace, into like a radiating peace. Then you hit a universal white light. And then you enter the formless jhanas, which again, at this point, the fabricated experience of a body has faded. And you could say consciousness and the world are not separate. And this is again experiential. This is not just a heady experience. This is somatic. So the experience of a body fades when the mind is very calm, and then it goes deeper. And I forget the order of them, but it's like the realm of nothingness, the realm of awareness, the realm of infinite space, and then the 8th jhana, the final jhana, is the realm of neither perception nor non-perception. And this is where it's kind of hard for the normal conditioned mind to understand what we're talking about. And I haven't made it there in my meditation yet. I'm still in the first 4 form jhanas. But basically, they say at this point, the mind is like falling and it's not landing on anything.
Mm.
If you can imagine, because the mind is always like landing on something. It's we're
Yeah.
constructing. I see Gary, I see my computer. There's something to land on. So that's the 8th jhana. And then even beyond that is what they would call the cessation of consciousness. So this is where, again, I haven't experienced this myself, but philosophically, it is unbelievably fascinating because who are you? What are you? What is this? If simply by calming the mind and unfabricating, we get to the cessation of consciousness, this means the end of consciousness itself, where the perception of consciousness, any perceived object within that consciousness, and time all fall away. So even time is empty, doesn't inherently
Yeah.
exist. So, and it adds a certain depth of freedom, of emptiness, where even that oneness can be understood as empty. Nothing here is solid.
Yeah, it goes pretty deep.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Mm. And see, one may think that has no inclination toward Buddhism. The mind may try and dress it up like, well, why would I want to see this nothingness?
Mm-hmm.
What's the incentive to the end, as you said?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I get that, but that's actually the good news. Because the Buddha was trying to tell us that we've been doing this for a very, very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been entrapping ourselves for a very, very long time. So don't you want to get off the hamster wheel?
Amen.
Right.
And I think that again, that brings to mind the sort of the wheel of life in Buddhism, and this is the different realms that we can end up, which is the God realms, human realm, hell realm, animal realm, hungry ghost, and this happens through different lifetimes, and also here incarnate, we oscillate through these different realms. And we always have our eye on the prize, metaphorically speaking. And that prize is usually material. And I say material as in a better life materially, more money, more security, more power, more good feelings, more fun adventures, vacations, whatever.
It's more and more and more.
Exactly. And there's no end. Again, the ego will never be satisfied. And for me, it was very obvious, like whereas like, oh, I've been on this wheel for a while where it's like you want this thing. Oh, it's the perfect girlfriend, the perfect job, the college degrees, all these things. And guess what? When you get it, where's the next thing?
Exactly.
My life is legitimately the fucking same. It's like,
yep.
And
the more you get, the more you want.
Right. And that's where it gets tricky. And that's where we can end up in just loops of material greed, for instance, and really stepping on other human beings, other beings on the earth in general, in order to have more, more, more. Little do we know, we will never find completeness, enoughness with that attitude. Again, so if we don't have that peace right now, if we can't touch it right now, we will never find it. It's something we cultivate here in the present moment, which is that deep sense of enoughness with every way that the world is. And that includes the pain, the suffering, my neurosis, my insanity, my traumas. All of these things are okay. It really is. If I can allow it, if I can open myself to reality as it is. And again, that means, well, I guess there's different levels to that. You could say reality as it is how it appears to me. But those appearances are fundamentally always empty. So if we want to change our world, we've been sort of conditioned to think we do that from the outside. I need, again, a better job, more connections, whatever. But actually, we can change our world from the inside. And that's sort of my slogan that will be on my website whenever this thing gets cranked out. But creating heaven on earth from the inside out. And I mean that very literally. Like the perception, the narratives that we feed creates the world that we project out there, creates the self we project onto this. And we can make that anything we want. And emptiness, that teaching is almost it's a hall pass. It allows you, it gives you the sort of the what's the word I'm looking for? The permission to try on any of these views and not say, oh, but I'm really like this, or oh, but the world's really like that. Nope. All empty.
And the permission is granted by yourself.
Yeah.
That's the huge 180. Because when we're caught in that loop, the loop of samsara of more, we're also looking for permission from the out there, from the more, the validation from the more.
Exactly.
Mindset.
Exactly. And it's all in you. And it reminds me of the story of the Buddha's enlightenment where, he's sitting under the Bodhi tree and the armies of Mara, mythically come at him. And they're shooting their arrows, throwing his spears, and he gets showered in flowers because he transforms that sort of evil doubt, deception into flowers. Again, and he touches the earth because, Mara's saying, who do you think you are to understand, to become free of suffering, to really understand reality like this? Who do you think you are? And the Buddha touched the earth and he said, the earth is my witness. And when you see it for yourself, you don't need validation from anybody. Again, you, me, you, I, we are the creators in every sense. If you say you need validation, you do. If you say you don't need validation, you do. If you say the world is empty, it is. And if you say the world isn't empty and there really is a way that things are at the level of appearance, it is. But fundamentally, what allows all of those the malleability of perception is the ground of emptiness. So it's a recognition of how can people have such different perspectives? Like, what did they believe in the Amazonian rainforest 3,000 years ago, or before Christ in Jerusalem? What was the world they were walking through? And we have this illusion that the worldview we have right now is objectively the way things are. We figured it out now. Give it 2,000 years, our worldview will be dramatically different. So
Yep.
even the world we're walking through right now is illusory. It's a projected experience. And when you recognize this, we can become children of illusion. You can still play with these ideas, but seeing them as empty.
Mm. Yeah, I like how you say the ground of. What'd you use? You said the ground of emptiness. Yeah, that's what it was.
Mhm.
Because that's like, it may seem like a paradox, but it's
Exactly.
actually poetic.
It's the groundless ground. And again,
Yes.
the deeper we get, the more I found we have to be able to let go of the logical mind's need for certainty and embracing paradox, actually. The only ground, the only
Exactly.
reality is that there is no ultimate reality.
Uh
Um,
huh.
but at
The
the
only
same
truth is there is no ultimate truth.
exactly, except for emptiness. So that's
Uh
where
huh.
it's because at one level, what allows for the malleability of views is emptiness. But again,
Mm.
if we say, as a culture, as an individual, that say the reductionist scientific materialism perspective that we've been conditioned into, if we say that's objectively real at the level of appearance and our own perception, it is.
Mm.
So this is where it gets tricky. Where this might be a little bit hard to follow, but it's a full spectrum of freedom where when you really understand emptiness, you see even the relative notion of emptiness is in itself empty, where it's empty of any inherent truth. Again, where there is experience, there's fabrication. But what we're doing is we're recognizing the empty ground of experience. And what we're doing is we're cultivating a view, a point of view, a perspective that is emptiness. And what that does for us is it's still empty, but it's like a skeleton key that opens up the mind to the full spectrum
Mm.
of possible experiences. So
Yeah.
it's dramatic, but again, even emptiness, it is a view that we pick up and we put down. This is what
Mm-hmm.
Robert Bea would say. It's not something to hold on to tightly, because again, that would
Mm-hmm.
be a mistake from the Buddhist lens to hold on to anything too tightly. Because at some points, emptiness is not useful. And this teacher again, Rob, he would say, like in a romantic, intimate, sexual encounter, do you just want to perceive this as empty? Do you?
Mm.
But then emptiness. This is where
Uh,
you know what it, you could
Kinda though.
exactly, kind of. So that's where you could. Um, but again, you could see who's this person in front of me. In an intimate dynamic, you could say this is God itself. You know what I mean? And how does that change the way you relate, you engage with that person? And this is more of that like sort of tantric style of intimacy, which is you're cultivating divinity and complexity in those experiences.
Yeah. That makes it even deeper, I feel though.
Exactly. So maybe that's the thing. I found emptiness to be pretty useful, like consistently, but as they talk about this in traditional Buddhist schools, which is people getting drunk on emptiness. We say this is the way things are. Everything's empty, and yes, it is. But we need to recognize that for some people, even yourself, some of the time, things are not empty because maybe we
Yeah.
forget or we're just
Yeah.
projecting solidity onto things. And that's just
Yeah.
as real in a relative sense.
I'm following you. I'm following you. This is tough to put into words for sure, but I
Hmm.
get it.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's being very fluid. It's like you can't fake non-attachment,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Exactly. And like I said, so it's interesting, like, in Buddhism, they talk about tanha, which is the Pali word for like clinging, craving, clinging and aversion. And it's
Doesn't it
interesting.
mean thirst?
Yeah, exactly. So craving, basically, of I
Yeah.
either want this thing forever because of good feelings, and I
Yeah.
want to push away bad feelings. Basically, sort of at one level, like a hedonistic perspective. Um, but it's natural, I want the good stuff and I don't want the bad stuff. It's pretty, organic, I guess you could say. But
Mm-hmm.
what it does is in Buddhism, they would say it spawns delusion. So when we cling or push away, when there's clinging or aversion, you could say in a non-dual sense too. When I cling to something, I'm actually constructing at the level of my perception something solid to cling to, whether that be a person, a job, a narrative, a worldview. The more I cling to it, the more solid and real it seems. And
Yes.
interestingly, it's the same with fear. And I think, especially in the times that we're living in, it's really necessary to learn intimately about fear and what it is and how it comes to be. So, fear is something, the more we push away a feeling, a thought, a narrative about the future, the more we push that away, the more solid and real it becomes. So, again, this fear of death, this fear of the apocalypse, whatever, China invades, we get Skynet, like for real though. Like the more we say that's unacceptable, the more we're actually tightening, the psyche is tightening around that big scary narrative, and it tightens it and it makes it seem real. When it's like, if we can open actually, and instead of contract, expand, then interestingly, when we embrace that fear, let it move through us, we enter into a malleability of the narrative that invoked the fear. So we can start to deconstruct any sort of fear, insecurity, shame. It's all built on empty beliefs. And the more we resist those empty beliefs, again, the more solid they seem, the more we open to them, the more we'll find we can untie those sort of knots in the psyche. That's the way I look at it. They're like knots.
Yeah.
Where the tighter we pull, the tighter that knot seems to get. And you're like, oh, this is just how things are. And this also relates to trauma, where when we can open to the trauma of our past, the fact that our childhood kind of fucking sucks sometimes, like the more we can open to that, the more we actually loosen those knots and we can start to untie them and make them into something new.
Amen to that. This is a good conversation, man. I'm having a better conversation on Buddhism with you than I have with Buddhist monks.
Whoa, let's go, bro. Yeah. Dude, I got to show you this teacher, Rob Burbea, man, because at this point, I only listen to him for the most part. I listen to other people too, but he's just like the rock. He, his way of explaining these things and just the matter of factness and the practicality of it. I just
really have to bring him on here.
Yeah, exactly. I want to show more people this teacher. And he actually passed away in 2020, so that actually.
Oh, no, never mind. I meant bring him on the podcast. I didn't know he was gone.
Dope. R.I.P. Yeah. But that's a big part of why I feel also such a calling to spread this stuff. Because I never used Instagram, I never used YouTube, I never made any content. And before like a year and a half ago, when I got that kind of message, it's like, look at what you've been given. Look at the way you impact people when you speak to them about these things. Who do you think you are to keep this to yourself? And since, again, Rob passed away, I do feel that sort of obligation where I hope the listeners or whoever, you can understand even just a little bit of the potential in these teachings.
For sure.
The practicality and how deep it can go. And it's like, I will happily spend my life just teaching this stuff because it's there's a quote from the Buddha, which is ehipassiko, which is Pali and translates to come see for yourself. It's not a faith. It's not in the way we would normally say a faith, how a faith functions.
Not blind faith.
Exactly. It's you see it with your own two eyes. And at that point, again, the earth is my witness. I don't need to prove this to anybody. I've seen it. And that is a teachable experience. It's a teachable skill, a teachable perspective. And I'm absolutely tenacious. And I just want to because I've seen how it's impacted me. People see me now. They're like, oh, he's a good looking dude. He's very extroverted. He's probably, had an easy life. And I'm like, people don't understand. I had a pretty rough
we're all suffering
in some ways. And a lot of what could be called trauma. I don't love that word, but a lot of wounding. Like I remember when I was depressed, I was so dissociated. Like people would talk to me and like just straight up in front of me, and I didn't even know what they said because I was so dissociated. I hated myself so much. So it was that amount of pain that I was gifted, actually, that I had to work through. And I do see it as a gift. Like, thank God you gave me that crippling darkness, because look at what I was forced to find, and I am gives me chills. Like I could cry just thinking about that because it is just beautiful.
Yes, man. Yes. That is the transmutation, is seeing our suffering as actual grace.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. It's like, so I just graduated from grad school with a psychotherapy degree. It was at this school called Naropa. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a Buddhist school founded by Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. So the degree program was contemplative psychotherapy and Buddhist psychology. So I just got my LPCC, and now I'm seeing clients. And so just seeing the psychotherapeutic lens firsthand, there is what seems to be a limit to how free we can get. Where you could say just one thing would be the sense of self that is traumatized, the sense of self that needs to be healed, the me, the Ben. We take this as unchanging, independently existing, and that's a delusion. Actually, in Buddhism, they would say we can show you practices so that you see that for yourself. And then what happens to this quest for infinite healing? What is healing? And I just made a video on this on Instagram where it's like, actually, our imagination is what's healing, because there is no real Ben here. There is no real trauma in the past. It's story, narrative, belief. So we're healing our own imagination. And I heard a quote about trauma where someone said, it's never too late to have a good childhood. And so
I like that.
Right. So it's all about our perspective here in the present moment.
The conscious perspective.
Exactly. Can affect our past, because we think, the past just happened and I can't change that. Actually, we can. So we can change the past through the narrative that we hold, our beliefs and our stories about what happened then. When I got picked on or bullied, what was happening then? Does it mean I'm less than them? Does it mean that I'm not good enough? Or does it mean that we live in a wounded world and everyone's kind of fucked? You know what I mean? And I got some brunt of that. Or the empty story that I was gifted trauma so that I could learn how to work with it. It's a different narrative.
Yeah.
One invokes empowerment, confidence, sort of that warrior mentality. Another one invokes shrinking, contracting, saying I'm a victim. And there's a lot of power in recognizing the emptiness of these stories. This is where people get caught in these contractive illusions of I'm just like this. I'm like this, and I'm good enough. I'm kind of insecure. I'm kind of sheepish. Whatever. Just unskillful narratives if we really buy that. And this changes a lot when, instead of focusing externally, how do I make myself better externally? We can start right here at the level of story. Am I a warrior? Am I? Can you say yes? And if you do, and you feel it in your heart, that's just as real as any other narrative. And I would say it's a much more what the Buddhists would call skillful narrative.
Yes.
Again, it's all empty. Some empty perspectives are just more skillful than others. And
skillful and virtuous.
Exactly. And I like how you say virtuous, because I think I do want to say with emptiness, there can be, at least for the immature practitioner, sometimes with some people, there can be a moving away from ethics because it's all empty. Who cares? It's all karma's empty. It doesn't matter. And I would say that ethics are actually essential for a life well lived. There's something about the ethics that I inhabit, that I live by, the values I hold. I'm also projecting that onto the world. And I can live if I want to live in heaven on earth, there is going to be real goodness, real purity of heart. And that heart it just wants to love. It wants to give. It wants to let go. That's what the heart wants. So there's a recognition that when emptiness actually matures, when you see the world as empty and you're really free, what's left is actually just love and the desire to be of service.
And altruism.
Altruism in this illusion. And Tibetan teacher Andrew Holacek said, it's almost like when you're at a sleepover and a bunch of your friends are having bad dreams and they're like rolling around and you're awake and you just want to like wake them up and you're like, hey, it's just a dream. And it is like that, where it's like, now I just feel like, let's wake up And when people say wake up, lots of people mean very different things. The Buddhist
Mm-hmm.
emptiness perspective of waking up is recognizing it's sort of a paradox, but reality isn't real, and I mean that. Like, it sounds crazy. What do you mean reality isn't real? But that is what Buddhism is saying with emptiness.
Yep.
Is at one level it isn't. It could never be separate from your imagination, and your imagination is completely malleable.
Mm. Life is but a dream.
Exactly. Life is but a dream. Thoreau said, I think it was Thoreau or Emerson said, this life is but a canvas for your imagination. And it is. And we just need to remember that. And emptiness is, with that metaphor in mind, emptiness is like, sort of you build a world on an etch-a-sketch type thing, and then emptiness, you can just shake that etch-a-sketch and you can rewrite it at the level of self and world, your past, your future. What happens after death? I don't know. It's empty. You can make that whatever you want. And how many people, for instance, are gripped, like really gripped by the fear of death and the illusion of finality, where, like I said earlier, it's like a knot. The more we push away death, the tighter and more solid it seems, the more real this finality seems. And when we really, again, with this warrior mindset, with this warrior myth that we live, go dead ass
conquer it
into death, you really look at it and you shine the light of your awareness on this big scary thing called death, you'll see there's legitimately nothing to be afraid of. This is an idea in my own mind. I'm being scared, living in fear of my own mind. It's
that's crazy, man.
Right? It's different than saying death is objectively real. It's actually, it exists up here. And what I'm afraid of is also up here. And this applies not just to death, but everything. We're afraid of the projections of our own mind. And when you not only are we afraid of them, we also fall in love with our own projections of mind, whether that be another person, an experience, a pet, a partner, whatever. Love.
They're all equal in some way.
Exactly. You're actually in love with your own mind because it's a projected understanding of who this person is. And some people might not like that, but there's a freedom in it. It's a freedom in recognition. Yeah. Like, yes, that person has their agency, their autonomy, but you can never experience them really, just like you can never experience yourself really, because everything that is experienced is seen through the lens. Flux. Yeah, this is where false and true. You can't find something that's objectively true, because it's all going through the lens of imagination. And if everything is always going through that sort of lens of the imaginal, again, you're free. You recognize, this is my own imagination, my own mind. And like you said at the beginning, then you have a radical agency, like a personal power that is unprecedented. You cannot find any other way, which is I can choose anything I want. And this is what I want to teach. So again, merging depth psychology, the archetypal, the imaginal, explicitly with emptiness. Because a lot of people, even unconsciously, have this understanding that there's a way that I am. There's a way that the world is. Of course, there has to be. Why? Who says?
Because somebody said so.
Exactly. And so what I want to do professionally, especially just getting my degree, is I want to teach these things in community. Because I found the worldview that we experience and that we inhabit right now is completely empty. It's just the view with the most momentum. So everyone's like, I guess this is how things are. And if you know what I mean? So if we want to change the world from the inside out and create narratives that invoke much deeper meaningfulness, much deeper love, connection, divinity, those really meaningful experiences, I think it has to be done in community. They don't have to, but it takes a very powerful mind, like a Christ Buddha level mind, to be able to hold these truths individually when the whole world is saying otherwise. We need the strength of many minds to come together to see directly for themselves. Again, ehipassiko, to come see for yourself the reality of emptiness, and then to choose narratives that are, again, more meaningful, poetic,
Yep.
invoke divinity, those experiences that are the most meaningful in your life. They do not just happen to you. They are co-creations. So we can create a world that is, again, dripping in the divinity, where the wind is the breath of God. And that's as real of an experience as saying it's not.
I like that.
Right?
That's good.
And that's the thing. You can play infinitely with these perspectives. Like, what is the wind touching my face? Does it have something to tell me? Like, what are the stars sparkling in the sky? What does that shooting star have to say to me? Who is that? What is that? And recognizing all of these narratives will always be empty. That's where, again, there is so much potential, where I think a lot of the mental health crisis comes from people living in this flat, one-dimensional experience, where the materialistic, again, scientific, reductionism-based worldview that's been largely unconsciously fed to us invokes an experience where all there is lifeless, random matter, and sort of me, the self, ended up here, and I don't know really what's going on. I really don't know what's happening. And it invokes this lifeless
nihilism.
Exactly, where it's just, and at that point, might as well just live a hedonistic lifestyle and try to make as money as I can, and
that's it.
Because again,
because there's no point and no purpose. There's no color.
Exactly.
There's nothing. Yeah.
And
it's gross.
So there's something very potent in recognizing, extremely potent in recognizing that worldview is built off of a story. It's built off of an unquestioned story. Recognizing that these stories and narratives that we're told that are in our conceptual mind, they are inescapable. They are always, there's going to be some conceptual overlay onto experience. You will never find an experience that exists beyond that. Even very subtly, maybe not language, but there's a understanding of this is a hand. This is a hand. This is Gary, even pre-language. When we understand that these narratives and stories become our lived experience, again, it becomes a world we're walking through very directly. We can start to deconstruct the unskillful ones, the ones that invoke depression, anxiety, separation, lack, a lack of divinity, also a lack of a direct relationship to something bigger than ourselves, which is that atheistic view, which is also empty. People have this, again, it's like a realist, like those who believe my way is really real, the realist perspective of atheism, where you get those like scientific types to say, nope, we just die and turn to dust, and then there's it's just final annihilation. But
I've been there. I know what it's like.
Me too. I grew up in a house with two doctors as parents, and that was the worldview. And I think that's
I like to say
I hit that spiritual path. No, you're good.
I was just gonna say I like to say atheists are halfway there.
That's a great way to look at it, actually. It's like
keep going.
It's like keep going. But you've let go of, these are all projections of mind. I'm over it. But we haven't yet seen that even the atheistic view is also a projection of mind.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. It's still out there.
Exactly. It's still in here, and it's still out there. And it's and that's the thing. The radicality of this is so profound.
Yes. Powerful stuff, man.
Yeah,
this
dude.
Is great.
I'm glad you think so.
Yes. Geez, man. I like to just say hallelujah to the sages of the past that came before us, that paved the way, right? So that we can understand this and have this conversation. Because if it wasn't for the Buddha and his lineage and Jesus and Muhammad and all of the other sages of Eastern philosophy, we'd be in the darkness, The fact that we have this all in our fingertips, we can reference the Dharma just like that. It's a miracle.
Amen.
So,
hallelujah.
Paying homage to them. Right. I always love to give credence to the people that came before me that did this before the internet.
Absolutely.
Because all of my understanding came from the internet. I imagine it's probably similar to you.
Yep.
Probably got some books here and there, but those books probably came from the internet in some way. You ordered them on the internet.
Yeah.
So all in all, it's because of the times that we're in that we're able to understand this, that I'm able to understand this.
Yeah.
So it's the fact that the people did this before we had this kind of technology, they reached these realizations and understandings and paved the way for us, is it's just wow.
It's dude, I can't imagine living in a world where Buddhism didn't exist. It's just being trapped again in the projections of mind, and you're like, this is just how things are. I don't know. It's like, how do we get out of this? Where'd it come from?
Yeah.
And
the thing is, it's like, we wouldn't even, like, if you don't have any exposure to the Dharma, which a lot of people don't, to be honest, and a lot of people haven't for the history of humanity.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even have the idea to say there's a way out of this, other than maybe, offing yourself or doing something crazy.
Absolutely.
Because it's like the realistic idea of escaping without escaping in the colloquial sense of escape. Like you wouldn't even have that that direction. There's not even like an inkling. Amen. So the fact that we have the internet, it allows for all of us, essentially, if we want it, to have that inkling in that direction.
Yes. And that's the thing. It's really high risk, high reward kind of stakes with the internet nowadays. Either you get people scrolling
double-edged sword,
dog shit TikTok for their whole lives.
Yeah, exactly.
Your brain, like,
isn't that crazy?
It is. I have a theory. I mean, the biblical prophecy of the rapture, where God saves the chosen few, and the rest are destined to live in hell on earth. Who knows? Maybe that's happening right now, with the polarities of those that, again, fill their minds with dog shit, or they fill their minds with good, healthy things, fill their minds and bodies. There's a heightened polarity, especially since COVID. You can see this polarity is getting stronger and more intense. And who knows? Maybe that's what they meant in that prophecy. But I did want to go back to what you were saying about the notion of being free from suffering. Without that notion, it's hard to walk the path, because what's interesting is the path is empty. So when you say, again, with the Four Noble Truths, there is a way to end suffering, and there's a path to end that suffering. You're actually constructing out of the empty void a path. And that's the thing. The path is only limited by what we can construct. Like, again, what is my image? What is my imaginal experience of what enlightenment would be like? Because that is the limit of my freedom, is my imaginal, again, projected experience. Would there be, what's bodily sensations? What would be happening in the mind? Again, recognizing the emptiness of all of it, because knowing there are different flavors of enlightenment in different, even Buddhist traditions. So who's enlightenment? What? And so recognizing all of these stories happen in the mind. And if I want to achieve something, I want to be great at what I do. I want to be enlightened. I want to walk the path of ending suffering, whatever. I want to change the world. You first fundamentally have to say that it's possible, because, again, it's all empty. And when out of the void, I speak those words, I speak the words that say, I can change the world. I can be free of suffering. You will be surprised at how fast you can progress on the path. And there's a quote from the Buddha where he said, when you see others who have achieved a lot on the spiritual path, that are deeply free, do not fall into the contraction of, oh, why me? Why are they better? I can't do anything right. Don't fall into that. See that as inspiration. If they can do it, you can do it too. If I can do it, I'm convinced anyone can fucking do it. And I say that with confidence. Like, if I can do it, they can do it. And I'm like, and that's the thing. The first step is saying, yes, I can. Yes, I can right now. I can be deeply free in this lifetime. I can be free from the fear of death. I can be permanently done with shame. I can get rid of that inner critic once and for all. We first have to say it's possible. And then you'd be surprised how the universe, how perception responds to that.
Amen. Mic drop on that, man. Yes. And it's like, once you take that first step, it's already over in a way. Like, once you realize that possibility and you bring that into oneself, and actually, like, it's more than just a mind. It's more than just an idea. It's like, you realize, like, that's it. That's the truth. You are the creator. Just from that one realization, it's over in some way. It is and it's not. It's a simultaneous thing, but I think you know what I'm getting at.
Exactly. Well said. And I think, again, like you said, it is and it's not. Because with emptiness, you come to the groundless ground of existence. And that
Yeah.
is, again, it's the ground. It's the ultimate freedom. There is nothing beyond that. But at
Yeah.
the same time, you opened up, this is a paradox too. The nothingness, the 0 point, opens up the infinite, where you see zero and infinity, actually, even mathematically, could be seen as something very similar, if not identical. They're inapproachable numbers. They don't really.
It's like life and death.
Right. And so with the understanding of emptiness, you open up literally infinite possible potential views, infinite different
Literally.
world views, infinite different views of self. There is no limit other than the one we construct. And even that's empty. So it's, again, it's paradox.
Always the paradox.
Mm-hmm.
We got to weigh the paradox. Always. Whew, all right, man. This was an amazing conversation. You are a very wise man. I appreciate you for coming on here.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'm not just saying that.
On. Yeah, this was a really great conversation. I would love to do some more sometime.
Yeah. I feel like we vibed well. We got good flow together. You're a cool guy. Keep up the good work, man.
Likewise.
I think we can start to wrap this up. But before we do, I want to ask, do you have anything else that you want to say and get off your chest?
Whew. What do I want to say? I mean, I've said so much in this. It's just like, again, it's my life.
I think we said it all.
Yeah. I guess if people want to get in touch with me, you can follow me on Instagram. Honestly, the best way right now is to follow me on Instagram. My handle is DuffDaddy100. So my name is Ben Duffy. It was an old nickname my wrestling coach gave me, but
I like it. Keep it.
Exactly.
Duff
It's not
Daddy.
hilarious. But BUFFDADDY100. You can get in touch with me over that. My website will be coming out soon, and it goes in depth about everything I was just talking about. And I'll be building community through that. So if you're really interested, stay tuned. If you want to get in touch with me, you can do that through Instagram.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, I bow to you, my friend. Thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you.
Keep up the good work. You're a real one.
Oh, thanks, man. Likewise.
This was amazing.
Yeah,
but,
that was a good one.
That's it.
Cool.
Peace and love to you, and peace and love everybody that listens to this one.
Yep.
Goodbye, y'all.